Today at ComixFM, we're diving headfirst into a blood-curdling, spine-ripping showdown like no other. Predator versus Judge Dredd versus aliens. From the twisted minds of John Layman and Chris Mooneyham, this brutal crossover rips open the gates of hell and throws Mega City 1 into total chaos. Ruthless Yacha hunters, acid-bleeding xenomorphs, and the law himself, Judge Dredd, collide in the most savage three-way war in comic book history. Smash that subscribe button, lock and load your lawgiver, and get ready, because this hunt is about to turn into an all-out massacre. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. Collision Course. A few weeks before the current events, a being descended from the sky into the swamp, an elite hunter from a feared species known across the galaxy, the Yacha, or Hishqua-10, better known as a predator. Hailing from a culture built on stalking, camouflage, and killing for honor and sport, this predator arrived fully equipped to track, trap, and survive. But today was different. Though armed and powerful, the predator was not the hunter, he was the hunted. Wounded and stumbling through the marsh, he activated a distress beacon just before being ambushed by unknown assailants. An arrow pierced him, green blood splattering. Weakened, he collapsed. A shadowy voice mocked him, calling him a funny-looking critter. Emerging from the trees were anthropomorphic animal warriors. A bear with a red bandana, a towering rhino, a raccoon, the gorilla, and a buck. They surrounded the fallen predator. The buck declared that being funny-looking wasn't a crime, but trespassing was, and that was something they didn't tolerate. He stabbed the predator again. Nearby, another group communicated via radio. They confirmed the predator ship had crash-landed and identified him as a spaceman, clearly not one of the local alien species. One of them, Buck, reported the predator was still alive, barely. Another warned to keep him that way for Doc Rhinestone, who wanted to analyze his DNA. Inside the ship, someone called to the others to look at what they found. The Buck, stepping into a room full of alien weaponry and trophies, was stunned by the predator's arsenal. He remarked how lucky they were the predator hadn't used any of it. One of the others added that there was even more hidden within. Their focus now shifted from merely eliminating a threat to understanding the advanced technology the predator had brought with him. Inside the predator's ship, the antlered humanoid and his team discovered a wall filled with skulls, a trophy collection, mementos from the predator's previous kills. The leader ordered the weapons transported to the compound, and the skulls sent to Dr. Rhinestone's lab. One of his men wondered if the doctor could do anything with them, and the buck-headed leader reminded him that Rhinestone had created them all. With the right DNA, the doctor could do almost anything. Saying this, he held up an alien skull. Under a blazing sun, Judge Dredd and fellow judges rode across the wasteland on Lawmasters, heading into the cursed Earth. Dredd, coming from Mega City 1, was described as the last line of defense against chaos and corruption. Their journey took them to Isotope Gulch, a forbidding outpost near the Alabama border. Dredd led a full team and approached a town, declaring to all criminals inside that they had 3 seconds to surrender. He counted aloud, then yelled that he'd come in and make them wish they had. The team stormed a bar called Suds and Spuds. Dredd demanded everyone stay put, saying they were hunting terrorist fugitives from Mega City 1, hiding in Isotope Flats. His colleague Judge Gilligan commented that the place looked like a typical mutant-filled dump, but Dredd warned looks could be deceiving. Judge Anderson used her psychic powers and sensed deception and fear. Dredd confirmed the fugitives were there, part of a cult who'd caused chaos back in Mega City 1. As Anderson's eyes glowed, Dredd said he didn't need psychic powers to confirm it. He could smell it on them. He slammed one of the disguised men into a table. Another judge yelled, "Holo-inducers," as a net of blue energy revealed their true faces. Once the judges exposed the fugitives' disguises, the cultists panicked. One shouted to his brothers to strike. Blades were drawn and a violent brawl erupted. Judge Anderson landed a punch and mocked them. One cultist lunged at Dredd, but he blocked the attack and coolly announced the sentence: 20 extra years and an ISO cube for assaulting a judge. Dredd floored another attacker and barked for Judges Anderson and Gilligan to finish the fight. Anderson responded she was already breaking faces as fast as she could. Amid the chaos, a cultist struck Dredd with a baton and made a run for it. Dredd growled, "Not today." Charging out of the saloon, Dredd tracked the fugitive. He set his lawgiver to heat-seeker, non-lethal, and fired. The shot hit the cultist square in the back, dropping him. As the man crawled, Dredd demanded to know the location of their leader, the Robo-Messiah, Archbishop Emoji. Bleeding and laughing, the cultists revealed they had seen the judges coming. Their mission was only to stall them while the Archbishop escaped. Elsewhere, another judge confirmed the escapee headed west into the Alabama morass. A local warned that it was a lawless jungle, full of unnatural beings, where trespassers never returned. Dredd ignored the warning, declaring, "I am the law," before riding off in pursuit. Meanwhile, in a lab, Dr. Rhinestone admired a xenomorph skull, marveling at its design, built to evolve, adapt, and propagate. He called it divine. Facing the predator, restrained in his lab, Rhinestone introduced himself as the mastermind behind the mutant hybrids. He boasted of splicing DNA to create new beings, calling the predator almost worthy of his genius. But then he unveiled something more terrifying, a living facehugger, born from xenomorph DNA. He intended to unleash it on the predator. His next experiment was about to begin. Dr. Rhinestone prepared a facehugger, boasting that what was once mere DNA had become magnificent and would become even greater with the predator's assistance. He forced the facehugger onto the restrained predator. When interrupted, he snapped at the intruder. But the buck-headed subordinate insisted it was urgent. A scout had reported trespassers. At his surveillance hub, Rhinestone already observed the judges entering the morass. He knew they tripped his surveil bots and labeled them as hunters tracking a fugitive. He identified them as judges from Mega City 1 and ordered them captured, declaring he had plans for them too. But the subordinate clarified he wasn't referring to the judges. There was another set of trespassers. Outside, a new group had arrived. 5 heavily armed Yautja warriors, drawn to the beacon of the wounded predator. One of them knelt before the signal, while the others stood ready for battle. The unearthly collision was inevitable. Chapter 2. Crash and Burn. 5 years ago in Mega City 1, Judge Dredd responded to an emergency at the Melissa Gilbert Block Orphanage. A robotic caretaker revealed that a man posing as a government agent had injected orphans with a fake radpox vaccine, actually a DNA fuser. The man took a child hostage and threatened to destroy the city. He called himself Dr. Niels Rhinestone. In the present, the Predator hunting party analyzed the site where a distress beacon had activated. They had been returning from a previous hunt when they intercepted the signal and traced it to a swampy overgrowth within a radioactive wasteland. As expert trackers, they quickly deduced that one of their own had been hunted, captured, and taken alive. They also found a series of strange tracks, both animal and vehicle, and evidence of native primitive ballistics, along with blood from one of the planet's humanoid inhabitants. From this, the Predators reconstructed what had happened earlier at the scene. There, Judge Dredd and his team had pursued the cult leader, Archbishop Emoji, through the jungle. The judges gave chase on bikes, demanding surrender. Emoji opened fire with ballistic weapons. The Predators noted bullet casings and synthetic lubricant, and even Bosu, their leader who had hunted Earth before, found the wreckage and evidence confusing. During the jungle battle, Judge Gilligan was wounded. Dredd programmed the lawgiver to fire armor-piercing rounds. Gunfire erupted, hitting Emoji's bike, but Archbishop evaded. The Predators concluded this was not just a hunt, but a collision between powerful native forces. The trail was clear. The hunt was no longer just about rescue. It had become a warpath. Judge Dredd declared, "Enough," and loaded a high-explosive round into his lawgiver. He fired at Archbishop Emoji, blasting the cult leader apart in a massive explosion. The judges arrived at the wreckage, confirming Emoji's destruction. As they examined his remains, Dredd began listing his charges: arson, attempted murder, impersonating a messiah, cyberbullying, criminal conspiracy, and more. Judge Anderson reminded him not to forget speeding. Dredd added termination of operations to the list and aimed his gun at the fallen robot. Suddenly, Anderson winced, overwhelmed by a surge of psychic energy. Dredd asked if she was okay, annoyed that she interrupted the sentencing. She warned that the energy was coming from all around them. The judges looked up, and mutant attackers leaped from the trees. The group was ambushed by a mix of primal, hybrid creatures. Later, the predators examined the scene and found signs of a brutal fight. Gilligan's tooth and a bloody scene confirmed resistance. Strange animal tracks covered the ground. The predators deduced that the humanoids were ambushed by the same creatures who had attacked one of their own earlier. They resumed their hunt, believing they were now on the right trail. To avoid the same fate, the predators cloaked themselves. They activated their invisibility as a precaution against ambush. Meanwhile, in the village of the hybrids, a sentry watched from the trees as the cloaked figures passed undetected. He alerted his boss, who angrily demanded how they lost track of the intruders. The subordinate insisted that the group had vanished into thin air, despite orders to keep eyes on them. Their boss Rhinestone was not pleased, but the scout insisted that's exactly what had happened. In Rhinstone's lab, the subordinate Gobi apologized for letting the predators slip away, while the other Anti-Men were busy capturing the judges. Rhinstone dismissed him coldly. The judges, strapped into containment rigs, began waking up. Dredd groaned, immediately recognizing Rhinstone and muttering his name with contempt. Rhinstone welcomed him back to the land of the living, but said it wouldn't be for long. Flashback to 5 years ago. Dredd confronted Rhinstone during the orphanage hostage crisis. Rhinstone held a child at gunpoint, refusing to surrender. Dredd delivered his sentence for kidnapping, endangerment, and unauthorized genetic manipulation. Death. He shot Rhinstone in the head. Back in the present, Dredd was shocked. Rhinstone revealed that the man Dredd killed had only been a decoy, infused with his DNA and a large dose of psychane to mimic Rhinstone's homicidal tendencies. Anderson sensed madness and evil inside Rhinstone's mind, along with spiders. Rhinstone explained that his early DNA fusion experiments used insect and arachnid DNA, but those were crude. He refined the process in the Alabama morass, using local mammals. Rhinstone then revealed the turning point, the xenomorph skull. He called it true perfection and injected Judge McCrary with a formula derived from it. McCrary screamed as his DNA violently mutated, transforming him into a monstrous hybrid. Dredd watched in horror as McCrary's jaw dislocated and alien teeth burst forth. Rhinstone explained that his lifelong dream was to fuse disparate DNA into one perfect being. The xenomorph did it naturally. He introduced the next stage, an alien in its parasitic larval form, a facehugger. He put it on the face of Judge Gilligan, initiating the impregnation process. As Rhinstone described the slow gestation, Dredd revealed he already knew what those creatures were from previous encounters. Deep inside the lab, the predator strapped to the table was already dead. His chest had bursted open. A Predillion had burst out of him. Anderson whispered to Dredd, asking if he had an escape plan. She warned that McCrary's restraints wouldn't hold much longer. Rhinstone observed the facehugger on the predator and noted the results weren't as immediate as his own formula, but promised a future biological masterpiece. Dredd snapped at him, demanding how he knew about xenomorphs. Rhinstone was interrupted as a guard informed him that the spacemen had returned, fighting outside to reclaim their captured friend. Rhinstone grinned, amused, and confident they'd be in for a surprise. He then ordered Gobi to bring Judge Anderson, choosing her as the next host. Shocked, Anderson asked what he wanted. Rhinstone revealed she'd be the next stage of his experiments, calling her a fine queen. Dredd shouted from his restraints, demanding to know what Rhinstone planned for him. Rhinstone promised he had plans and ordered the computer to disengage the quarantine locks. He smirked, saying it was time to return the favor. As Dredd sat restrained, a monstrous Predillion emerged behind him, looming. McCrary, now mutated by the alien formula, thrashed and clawed at his restraints, and the countdown to chaos had begun. Dredd, still shackled in place, stared right at death. Chapter 3. Crimson Chaos. Archbishop Emoji never believed in the divine prophecies he preached. His apocalyptic cult and their holy book were lies, twisted to justify his hatred for humanity. Yet now, he believed in a different purpose,
divine or not. In the Alabama morass, he felt chosen to unleash salvation through apocalypse. This swamp, to him, was sacred ground, a place of miracles where the key to Mega City 1's destruction would be found. He simply hated humans and planned an extinction-level event. However, he was intercepted by Dredd and his team, and just as Dredd was about to deliver the lethal blow, they were attacked by the animal humanoids. The mutants captured the judges and prepared to deliver them to Dr. Rhinestone, who intended to splice them with alien DNA. They joked about strange heavenly agents and acknowledged the plan, experimenting on judges and combining their genes with alien material. For Archbishop Emoji, this disruption was seen as divine intervention. Now, inside Reinstoit's lab, Judge Dredd was restrained and surrounded by a Predalien hybrid and the genetically transformed Judge McCrary. Dredd demanded Anderson's release, but Reinstoit mocked him, confident in his captive's helplessness. However, the lab was suddenly under siege. Gunfire and screams echoed from outside. One guard warned it might be the Predators, who had returned to rescue their lost comrade. Reinstoit, arrogant, dismissed the threat and focused instead on Anderson. He expressed his intent to implant her with a xenomorphic queen embryo, declaring she would become a magnificent and lethal entity. But until then, she was helpless. Outside, the Predators hunted with precision, flipping the balance of power. One guard panicked, insisting they flee immediately. Anderson appeared unconscious, either from fear or exhaustion, but in truth, she was on a psychic trip. Back in the lab, Dredd shouted at Judge McCrary, who was now fused with alien DNA. He reminded McCrary that there was still a man and a judge inside him. Dredd urged him to fulfill his duty. McCrary roared and lunged at the Predalien, slamming it aside. As the hybrid screeched, Dredd encouraged him, and another figure struck, sending the Predalien crashing into the wall. The mutated McCrary clutched his head and spoke, revealing he wasn't just McCrary anymore. Dredd was stunned to learn that Anderson was inside McCrary's head, using her psychic powers to guide what was left of his humanity. But she admitted control was fading fast. She cut Dredd free just before the alien side overwhelmed McCrary again. She warned Dredd that his lawgiver was gone, and he only had seconds left to act, enough time to escape. Dredd carried Gilligan outside and found the forest littered with dead animal mutants. He realized something brutal had happened. When he called for Anderson, there was no reply. He told Gilligan it was just the two of them now. As he checked Gilligan's weight and scolded him for being overregulation, he solemnly said, losing McCrary was already bad enough. Suddenly, a predator arrow pierced Gilligan's chest. A predator emerged from the mist. Dredd, furious, cradled Gilligan's body and warned the predator that it had made a huge mistake. He attacked with full force, declaring that assassinating a judge carried the death penalty. He ignored the predator's alien language and struck again, declaring ignorance no excuse. Then Anderson appeared and ordered him to stop, revealing that the predators were actually allies. She explained that Rhinestone had surrendered after the predators arrived. Now he and his surviving hybrid animal men were in a holding cell, guarded and contained, inside a Yautja ship. Dredd was stunned. The predators spared Rhinestone, but Anderson explained they followed an alien code of honor. Prey that begged for mercy was unworthy. Thanks to her psychic powers, she could understand the Yautja. Dredd warned the predator who killed Gilligan about the price of murdering a judge. The predator responded that Gilligan was already doomed from the xenomorph embryo growing inside him. Anderson added that the predator believed taking his life was a mercy. Dredd argued Mega City 1 had the tech to extract it, but the predator knew Gilligan had progressed too far. Anderson and Dredd agreed the Yautja knew the danger of letting the other xenomorphs escape, and why they must be stopped. Anderson returned Dredd's lawgiver, mentioning the Yautja were hunters by nature. Now they had to kill McCrary and the Predalien. Holding the lawgiver, Dredd gave the order, "Let's hunt." They set off into the jungle. Anderson sensed the xenomorphs had escaped the lab after Reinstow dropped the force fields. She recalled the one grown from Yautja DNA had been injured, allowing her to influence it briefly to help McCrary resist. Dredd suggested she try again, but Anderson said whatever was left of McCrary was gone. Still, she pointed out the creature had McCrary's DNA, and judges trained by Dredd weren't known for subtlety. Suddenly, the hybrid McCrary struck from the trees, slamming into a Yautja. Anderson commented that she didn't think he'd be hard to find. Dredd screamed, "Rapid fire," and engaged the xenomorphs with his lawgiver. He challenged the beasts to face him directly. The Predator slashed open his gauntlet blade and stabbed through McCrary's chest. McCrary's acid blood sprayed everywhere, cutting deep into the Predator. The Predalien leaped beside McCrary. They stood together against Dredd, Anderson, and the Predators. Dredd rallied Anderson to strike. The team opened fire together. Predators, Anderson, and Dredd unleashing gunfire in unison, shredding both of the alien hybrids into pieces. After the brutal battle, Anderson asked if they'd won, but Dredd warned they were just lucky. They had backup, and the Predalien hybrid was already injured, or things could have been worse for them. Dredd told Anderson to inform the Yautja that he wouldn't charge them for killing Gilligan. Acknowledging they were right, he couldn't have saved Gilligan, but he insisted they leave Earth, as he wouldn't tolerate them hunting on this planet. Anderson had already arranged it. The Yautja agreed to leave Rhinestone and his hybrids for sentencing, and were preparing their starship for takeoff. But Rhinestone answered on the other end of the comm. He joked that the Yautja crew member was dead and couldn't answer the call. He was aided by a new ally, Archbishop Emoji. He mocked the judges and revealed he had joined forces with the Archbishop. Science and faith together, they shared a purpose. All of Rhinestone's Anti-Men were infected with xenomorph DNA, and the chestbursters had already emerged. Their next destination was Mega City 1, where Rhinestone planned to bring apocalypse with a monstrous army of his Anti-Man xenomorph hybrids. Chapter 4: Collateral Carnage. Mega City 1, with a population of 800 million, was now under threat. Archbishop Emoji had long promised his apocalyptic cult that death would come to all non-believers. After being exiled by the judges, he sent out a message of his glorious return, calling his followers to gather. As the crowd assembled outside their church, the promise of divine carnage arrived, but not in the way they expected. The Ani-Men xenomorph hybrids tore into the crowd, slaughtering the cultists. Meanwhile, aboard their ship, Rhinestone and Archbishop Emoji admired the devastation. To Rhinestone, this was not apocalypse, it was purification. He believed humans were genetically inferior, and with the addition of xenomorph DNA, his Ani-Men reached perfection. Injecting himself with a serum, he declared this the dawn of a new era. Then he cocked a gun at Archbishop's head and said grimly, "Pity you won't be around to see it." The Archbishop was eliminated. Elsewhere, Dredd and Anderson approached Mega City 1 in a damaged alien vessel, barely held together with makeshift repairs. Dredd contacted Control, reporting pursuit of 2 criminals who unleashed deadly extraterrestrials. Control, skeptical, demanded the ship land for inspection. Dredd refused and stressed the urgent threat. Inside HQ, Control hesitated. Ames Block had only reported strange animal noises, and resources were stretched. Dredd shouted that those were signs of the creatures. If no one was calling, it was because they were already dead. On board, Anderson and Dredd prepped for landing. Officials asked for the nature of the threat. Anderson explained the hybrids were once genetically altered Ani-Men now implanted with xenomorphs. Control insisted they redirect for inspection. Dredd cut the comm, saying they were on their own. Just then, 2 Yautja allies, Bosu and another Predator, emerged from the ship. Anderson grinned, stating, "Good thing we already have backup." A drone hovered above a field of mutilated corpses. Judge Dredd, Anderson, Bosu and his Yautja comrade approached the carnage. Dredd called it a massacre, but Anderson said it was just the beginning. They needed to stop Rhinestone before he made more creatures. Dredd speculated that unleashing them on Mega City was only Rhinestone's first phase. Anderson tried to locate him via psychic scan but found nothing. Dredd worried that Rhinestone believed he could control his creations. As 2 Yautja walked away, Dredd shouted at them. The Yautja wanted to split up to track better, but Dredd refused to let them roam unsupervised. He insisted they hunt together or not at all. Anderson translated, saying the Yautja agreed, and that their tracking would complement the judge's city knowledge. Dredd pressed Anderson for a more complete translation. She hesitated, then revealed the Yautja had said, "Make sure you keep up." They moved through the city. The Yautja were adept at urban tracking. They found more bodies, and one Yautja confirmed it was a fresh kill. Another noted that the amount of blood suggested more corpses than they found. Anderson and Dredd concluded that either the creatures were feeding or doing something else. Elsewhere, a street dealer sold illegal Umpty candy. Just as the buyer begged for his fix, a xenomorph lunged out. The judges in Yautja arrived just in time, blasting it apart. The dealers complained its acidic blood burned them. Dredd showed no sympathy, sentencing them to 16 months in an ISO cube for Umpty bagging. At a construction site, a xenomorph attacked civilians. Dredd tried to intervene but was struck by its sharp tail. The creature overpowered him, wrapping its tail around his neck. Bosu leapt in, cloaking himself, and then stabbed the xenomorph right in the gut and killed it. Dredd targeted another xenomorph preparing to flee with a victim. Anderson stopped him from shooting. This one wasn't killing, it was taking the victim somewhere. Dredd and the others decided they would follow. Dredd and the group tracked the creature into an abandoned reclaim site. Inside, they found numerous civilians encased and surrounded by overmorphs. Dredd warned the team to keep their distance, knowing the people wouldn't survive once the creatures hatched. As they ventured deeper, Dredd instructed them to stay quiet and discover where the overmorphs were coming from and where the creature had gone. Suddenly, xenomorphs attacked. One Yautja was impaled. Dredd was pounced on by a xenomorph. Anderson's weapon was destroyed, leaving her unarmed. Two xenomorphs cornered Bosu. Under siege, Dredd realized he had no choice. He commanded his lawgiver to switch to incendiary mode and unleashed fire throughout the hive, torching the overmorphs and the xenomorphs that attacked Bosu. He followed with armor-piercing rapid-fire rounds to finish off the xenomorphs. Afterward, Dredd apologized to an unconscious Bosu, noting that he'd wake up, albeit with scars. But when he looked again, Anderson was gone. Anderson, now separated, made her way through the tunnels, reaching out with her psychic senses. She evaded several hatching facehuggers and followed the path forward. Eventually, Anderson entered a massive chamber and came face to face with the enormous alien queen. She insulted the creature, calling it ugly, and deduced that it had once been Reinstadt. She figured out that the serum originally meant for creating a queen, intended for her, had instead been injected by Reinstadt into himself. Reinstadt, now fully transformed and monstrous, mocked her, saying she talked too much for someone about to die. But Anderson revealed she wasn't just talking. She was buying time. She'd intentionally drawn the queen's attention, along with all the facehuggers, toward herself. As she stepped aside, a glowing silhouette behind her appeared. Anyone would think that it was the Predator Bosu, but instead, it was Dredd. He had used Bosu's cloaking device to reach the Queen's lair. Dredd shouted, "Time's up for you, scum," and programmed his lawgiver, High X, deploy all rounds. The lawgiver's ballistics blasted through the Queen Reinstadt hybrid and engulfed everything in fire. Dredd shouted for everyone to get out. He carried the wounded Bosu with him, while Anderson carried the two remaining civilians. As they emerged, Dredd declared the alien organisms eliminated and requested cleanup crews and medtech units. He then warned Control that they'd later discuss why backup wasn't sent earlier. At sunset, Bosu expressed gratitude for the judge's role in avenging his fallen comrades, calling Dredd an honorable warrior. Anderson relayed that Bosu saw Dredd as a worthy challenge, which was supposed to be a badge of honor. Dredd told him to take his trophy and leave Earth. Pointing to the sky, Dredd warned that Earth was off limits, and hunting season was over. That's all for today, folks. If you enjoyed this blood-soaked battle royale, drop a comment below and smash that subscribe button for more stories that slice, stop, and sear right off the page. Spread the word. ComixFM brings back the X in comics. Till the next showdown, stay savage, stay inked, and never miss the next kill panel.